Book, Chapter 2400, What Need Is There to Insist? Published by Divine Tao Library. Translator, Salavan and Godbrandy. Translation checker, Pew Pew Lasergun. Editor and proofreader, Leo of Zion Mountain and Dale Ligerkeys. Fan Sin couldn't understand why her honored master had given him this order. None of the disciples of Ice Heart Pavilion had ever gone to sea before, nor was there any need for them to do so. What surprised her even more was that her honored master had put Yang Kai in charge of everything, telling them to follow his every order. Yang Kai hadn't been in Ice Heart Pavilion for long, but he had her honored master's complete trust, to the point that she left all of her disciples in his care. Fan Sin couldn't understand why her honored master treated Yang Kai so well. What had he done to deserve this kind of treatment? But even if she had her doubts, she didn't dare to disobey her honored master's orders. "We'll wait here for a short while," Yang Kai said, glancing toward the city gate. Fan Sin didn't probe further, simply nodding and looking for a place to stand. Soon after, Yang Kai saw several familiar figures come over from the city gate and he couldn't help but smile. Big Sister Ling, Lu Xianyun finally understood who Yang Kai was waiting for and she hurried to greet everyone. After exchanging greetings, Ling Yin Chin arrived in front of Yang Kai, her expression serious. "Senior brother Yang, we've decided to come with you." "Good," Yang Kai nodded with a smile, "you won't regret it." He then swept the newcomers with his gaze, noticing that less than half of Ling Yin Chin's crew had gathered here. The remaining members were nowhere to be seen. It seemed that even with her reputation, Ling Yin Chin was unable to make everyone place their trust in Yang Kai. Zhao Yi had followed Ling Yin Chin and winked at Yang Kai. "Brother Yang, we'll be putting our lives in your hands, so things better go smoothly." Yang Kai nodded. "You'll see in the next few days. For now, let's board the ship and set out." The dock was full of people and large sea ships. As such, no one paid attention as Yang Kai's group boarded one of the ships and left Clear Sky Island. After a short moment, their ship was already out at sea, getting farther and farther away from the island. Although the disciples of Ice Heart Pavilion were completely ignorant about anything sailing related, the same could not be said about Ling Yin Chin's crew, who were experts in the field. The ship sailed smoothly, cleaving through the waves. One day later, the ship was already a few tens of thousands of kilometers away from Clear Sky Island. Fan Sin arrived at the deck, her expression one of worry. She saw Yang Kai and asked, "Alchemist Yang, what about Honored Master? Why is she not here?" Yang Kai smiled. "Pavilion Master is very strong, so you don't need to worry about her. She simply needs to throw off someone before she can converge with us." Throw off someone? Fan Sin lifted her brow as she seemingly realized something before nodding and leaving. Yang Kai sensed something at that moment and turned his head to look off into the distance where he saw a graceful figure approaching him at high speed. At first, the silhouette was very distant, but it arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye. After the light shrouding the figure dimmed, Bing Yun's features became visible. "Who goes there?" Ling Yin Chin and her crew paled. If someone boarded your ship unannounced in the middle of the sea, it was almost always for nefarious purposes, so they immediately prepared themselves for a fight. When they swept this newcomer with their divine senses though, and realized how profound Bing Yun's cultivation was, their expressions turned to shock, and they no longer dared to act rashly. They couldn't gauge the depth of this young woman's cultivation, but the enormous pressure they felt served as a reminder to act cautiously. After probing her strength, their blood started boiling, and their chests felt heavy. This young woman was a master they absolutely could not afford to provoke. "Senior, you've come," Yang Kai said as he cupped his fists. Bing Yun nodded gently. "Honored Master." Fan Sin and the others from Ice Heart Pavilion also hurried to greet her, each of them in high spirits, as if they'd found their lost courage. "Senior, Honored Master." Ling Yin Chin and her crew were dumbfounded. Yang Kai was a third-order Dao Source Realm cultivator, so he would only call someone Senior if they were an emperor. Moreover, Ling Yin Chin was familiar with Fan Sin and knew that she was a member of Ice Heart Pavilion, so seeing them call this young woman Honored Master, it was easy to guess the latter's identity. This young woman was none other than the renowned Ice Heart Pavilion's Pavilion Master. The only person on Clear Sky Island who could stand on an equal footing with the island lord. Ling Yin Chin and her crew became excited as they looked at Bing Yun in admiration, their trust in Yang Kai increasing even further. Earlier, when they agreed to leave with him, it was because they were tired of living on Clear Sky Island and decided to take a chance as there didn't seem to be any other good options, but now, they really saw hope. If even Ice Heart Pavilion's Pavilion Master was here, they had nothing to worry about. Are these your friends? Bing Yun looked at Ling Yin-chin and her crew. Yang Kai said with a smile, Big Sister Ling and the others helped us quite a bit when Junior Sister and I first arrived here. To repay them for their kindness, I've decided to invite him along. Bing Yun nodded. You're someone who knows how to reciprocate gratitude. They were lucky to meet you. Seeing that she was talking about them, Ling Yin-chin stepped forward, her expression one of awe. She was so anxious that sweat was dripping from the tip of her nose and she could only offer a cautious greeting. Junior Ling Yin-chin greets Lady Pavilion Master. Zhao Yi and the others also hurried to salute Bing Yun, not daring to show any disrespect. Since you are Yang Kai's friends, you don't need to be overly courteous, Bing Yun said calmly. Many thanks, Lady Pavilion Master. Ling Yin-chin said gratefully. She didn't expect the famous Ice Heart Pavilion Master to be this approachable. Moreover, Yang Kai seemed completely relaxed when speaking with her. Ling Yin-chin was unsure how he could keep his calm in this situation. After a quick comparison, Ling Yin-chin realized that she was far inferior to Yang Kai. Senior, did you manage to throw off that old toad? Yang Kai asked. According to their plan, Yang Kai was to lead this group and leave by sea first. Then, it would be Bing Yun's turn to leave Clear Sky Island. After all, Chi-ri would surely notice her departure and would try to chase after her. Bing Yun was to lure Chi-ri outside, and then make him run in circles before throwing him off and converging with Yang Kai. As she was here, it meant she'd managed to elude Chi-ri. Bing Yun nodded and was about to say something when her expression changed. Turning to look in a certain direction, she grit her teeth and snapped, he is the type that doesn't feel regret until he sees the coffin. An ear-splitting thunderclap echoed. Along with the sound of thunder, a shining ball of fire that looked like a second sun appeared in the sky. It was so dazzling that people couldn't look at it directly. Then, great pressure weighed down on everyone, making it look as if the whole sky was about to fall down. All those present were having trouble breathing. Everyone aboard the ship paled in fright. When the dazzling light dimmed, two towering figures became visible. One of the figures was awe-inspiring, albeit somewhat angry at this moment, while the other one was a few paces behind and acted like a servant as he respectfully stood there, a flattering smile on his face. The City Lord. Ling Yin-chin's pretty face paled when she saw the awe-inspiring, middle-aged man. Although she'd never seen Chi-ri in person, she had seen his portrait plenty of times, therefore, she immediately became clear as to who this master was. Pang Guang. Yang Kai was so shocked seeing the man behind Chi-ri that his eyes almost fell from his sockets. Never would he have expected that Pang Guang would come here with Chi-ri. From his look, it seemed that Chi-ri had already subdued him. The last time they'd met, Pang Guang was seriously injured and was looking for the heavenly restoration lotus in Yang Kai's cave mansion. Now, although he had yet to fully recover, he looked much better than before, so it was clear he had taken some good pills during this period. As Chi-ri had already subdued him, it wasn't strange for him to give Pang Guang some pills and help him treat his wounds. Pang Guang looked at the people below, with his gaze stopping on Yang Kai for a moment, hatred apparent in his eyes. If it weren't for Yang Kai, he wouldn't have fallen into his current predicament. Although he was much weaker than Chi-ri, he was still an Emperor Realm Master and had his own sense of dignity. If not because he was forced to and had nowhere left to run, he wouldn't have thrown himself into Chi-ri's lap and begged for his protection. The other Emperor Realm Masters on Clear Sky Island were also unable to escape Chi-ri's influence, but their situation was much better than his. At least, they kept their freedom. Everything that had befallen Pang Guang was Yang Kai's fault. If he'd handed over the heavenly restoration lotus back then, Pang Guang wouldn't be in this situation where he didn't even have control over his life or death. He hated Yang Kai so much that not even all the water in this sea could quench the flames of his anger. Bing Yun. Chi-ri suddenly shouted, his deep voice spreading all around. As if it could feel the anger concealed in his voice, the seawater around also began to churn, setting off waves that reached the height of a dozen meters. Where are you going in such a hurry? Bing Yun stood straight, unfazed. She waved her hand and dispersed the pressure exuding from his body as she said calmly, wherever this queen wants to go, it's her business. What does this have to do with Sir City Lord? Chi-ri's face darkened and he coldly snorted, Bing Yun, are you thinking of leaving this place? If you already know the answer, why do you need to ask? Bing Yun said coldly. She had no intention of talking nonsense with him. So, you were really planning to leave. Although he had guessed what she wanted to do, he still couldn't help getting angry when Bing Yun admitted it. He felt as if Bing Yun had abandoned him, which made him feel uncomfortable and heartbroken. He restrained his anger and took a deep breath. Bing Yun, we both know that leaving this place is impossible. What need is there to insist? As long as you are willing to come back and enter into a relationship with this king, I'll forget everything that happened today. The whole solitary void-sealed world will be ours. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Bing Yun shook her head. I could say the same to you. If you know that something is impossible, what need is there to insist? I don't want to be your enemy. Please go back. Chi Ri flew into a rage. Are you really going to be so obstinate? Aren't you afraid that this king will bury you all at sea?